Time did not break like glass. It folded. Elias Ward felt it first in his bones, pressure like deep water crushing inward, squeezing thought into silence. The hum of the chronogate roared in his ears, then vanished to place by the violent rush of air and the sudden, brutal certainty of gravity. He collapsed onto stone, cold, uneven. Ancient Elias gasped, coughing as his lungs filled with smoke-tinged air. He rolled onto his side, clutching his ribs, every nerve screaming as if his body had been ripped apart and stitched back together with careless hands. Then he smelled it. Not antiseptic. Not recycled air. Not electricity. Smoke. Animal waste. Whetstone. Human sweat. Oil. Wine. History slowly. Elias pushed himself upright. He was in an alley narrow, crooked, the walls rising high and close like the ribs of some great beast. Above him, wooden balconies leaned out, nearly touching, their shadows tangled in moonlight. Somewhere nearby, water splashed. A voice laughed. Another shouted in Italian. Sharp and musical, Florence 16th century. His heart hammered not from fear, but from awe. He checked his coat by instinct. Wool, rough and itchy, just as the fabrication division had promised. Leather boots. Linen shirt. No visible seams, no synthetic fibers, even the buttons were boned. Elias reached into his inner pocket. The beacon was there. Small, warm, working, insertion successful. He whispered the watch on his wrist stumbled. Shielded against temporal interference, had stopped. He exhaled. Slowly, of course. Elias waited until dawn. Before venturing out, Florence woke like a living thing. Light spilled across tiled roofs and marble facades, turning the city gold. Bells rang from distant towers. Shutters creaked open. Bakers carried loaves still steaming, their crusts cracking softly in the morning air. People flooded the streets. Merchants, monks, nobles in fine cloaks, barefoot children chasing dogs. Languages overlapped. Italian, Latin, French, Spanish. The world met here, traded here, argued and dreamed here. Elias walked carefully, eyes down, absorbing everything. He had studied Florence all his life. Holograms, reconstructions, simulations. Accurate down to the crack in a specific paving. Stone. None of them prepared him for the noise, or the smell, or the weight of history pressing on his chest like a hand. Every corner felt dangerous. Every word mattered. One wrong accent, one misplaced phrase, and he could end up robbed or worse. He passed the massive stone walls of the Palazzo Vecchio, its tower cutting into the sky like a blade. Guards stood watch, spears resting casually against their shoulders. Power was visible here, carved into buildings meant to last forever. Elias paused by the Arno River. The water moved slowly, reflecting bridges crowded with carts and people. Somewhere upstream, women washed clothes, laughing as they slapped fabric against stone. Downstream, fishermen cast their nets, patient and silent. For a moment, time felt gentle. Then a man screamed, "Ah!" Crowd gathered fast. Elias hesitated, then followed. Two men lay on the ground near a wine shop. One was motionless. The other clutched his stomach, blood soaking his tunic, eyes wide with shock. A dagger lay nearby. Voices rose. Thief. He insulted his honor. The Medici will hear of this. Guards forced their way through the crowd. One knelt, checking the fallen man's pulse. He shook his head. Dead. Just like that. No ambulance. No sirens. No questions about trauma counseling. Life here was fragile, cheap. Elias swallowed. This was not a museum. This was real. As the guards dragged the wounded man away, Elias turned and walked quickly, heart pounding. The past did not care that he was a visitor. It would kill him just as easily as anyone else. He found the workshop by accident. The building was modest stone walls, a wooden door scarred by time, but something about it pulled at him, a familiar gravity, like standing near powerful machinery. Inside, The air smelled of oil, wood, and ink. Tables overflowed with sketches, gears, springs, half-built mechanisms. Canvases leaned against the walls, painted faces watching silently, and at the center of it all stood Leonardo da Vinci, older than Elias expected. His beard was streaked with silver. His hands were stained with ink and grease. His eyes, dark, sharp, endlessly curious, looked up as Elias stepped inside. They locked instantly. Leonardo did not smile. "You walk," he said calmly. Like a man measuring the world, Elias froze. "I beg your pardon?" "You do not walk like a merchant," Leonardo continued, "nor a soldier, nor a priest. You observe. You calculate." Elias forced a shrug. "Habit." Leonardo tilted his head. "From where do you come?" Elias chose his words carefully. "The north." Leonardo nodded slowly, as if that answer both satisfied and disappointed him. "Then you are welcome," he said. "Curiosity is my favorite currency." Days turned into weeks. Elias returned to the workshop often. He watched Leonardo work, sketching ideas faster than ink could dry, tearing pages out in frustration, muttering to himself in multiple languages. They spoke of anatomy, of flight, of mathematics hidden in nature. Elias held back. Always holding back, Leonardo noticed. "You fear saying too much?" Leonardo said one evening, as candlelight danced across half-finished wings. "Why?" Elias hesitated. "Some knowledge arrives before the world is ready." Leonardo smiled softly. "The world is never ready." That night, Elias dreamed of gears turning backward, of marble statues cracking open to reveal machines inside. He woke to his beacon, vibrating and alert. A fracture in the timeline. Someone else had arrived. Elias found the device near the cathedral metal, too smooth, screws too precise. A communicator from his own century, damaged but unmistakable, unauthorized. If Renaissance scholars gained access to future technology, history would explode. That night, Elias confronted Leonardo. "You are not from my time," Leonardo said, before Elias could speak. "I've known this since the first day." The words hit like a blow. "I have studied illusion," Leonardo continued. "Your clothes, your hands, your questions. You are displaced." Elias closed his eyes. He told him everything. The future, the past, the rules. Leonardo listened in silence. When Elias finished, Leonardo took the future device and placed it into the fire. "Some knowledge," he said quietly, "must be sacrificed for beauty to survive." As extraction approached, Elias felt time tug at him. Unraveling his place in the world, Leonardo stood with him on the balcony as the sun rose over Florence. "Will I be remembered?" Leonardo asked. Elias smiled, tears burning his eyes. "More than you can imagine." Light consumed him, and Florence faded. Florence did not sleep. It only changed its mask by day. The city was bright with ambition, sunlight spilling over marble statues, voices rising in arguments about philosophy and profit, color and faith. By night, it became something sharper, quieter, more dangerous. Shadows lengthened. Doors closed softly. Secrets moved faster than people. Elias learned this within his first month. He lived in a rented room above a cloth merchant's shop, where the air smelled permanently of dye and damp wool. The merchant, Matteo, asked few questions in art perfected by men who survived in cities ruled by both money and knives. Each morning, Elias stepped into the streets and vanished into the flow of history. Florence ran on ideas as much as coin. Artists were not. Dreamers, here they were weapons. Families like the Medici collected painters, sculptors, and engineers, the way generals collected armies. Art was power. Architecture was propaganda. A single fresco could reshape loyalty. Elias saw it everywhere. A new statue unveiled in the square drew crowds and whispers. Was the pose too proud? Was the face meant to resemble a rival? Was the message loyalty or defiance? Even beauty had politics carved into it. Elias spent his days moving between workshops, never lingering too long in one place. He listened more than he spoke, memorizing names and tensions, alliances and grudges. Michelangelo's name was spoken with awe and resentment. Raphael's with admiration and suspicion. Leonardo's with a kind of uneasy, reverence genius, mixed with unpredictability. Leonardo himself remained an enigma some days. He spoke endlessly, words tumbling out faster than Elias could follow. Other days he worked in complete silence, eyes dark, movements precise, as if chasing something only he could see. "You are watching me again," Leonardo said one afternoon without looking up. Elias smiled faintly. "Occupational habit." Leonardo glanced at him. "Your occupation remains mysterious." "As does yours," Elias replied. Leonardo laughed softly. "Touché." The summons arrived, sealed in red wax. Matteo brought it upstairs himself, eyes wide. From the palazzo, he whispered as if the walls could hear. Elias took the letter. Heart-tightening Lorenzo de' Medici, not. Il Magnifico, that legend belonged to an earlier generation, but power still clung to the name like perfume. An invitation from the Medici was never casual. It was a test, a threat, or both. Leonardo read the letter over Elias's shoulder. "They are curious about you," he said. "That is dangerous. Curiosity built this city," Elias said. "Yes," Leonardo replied quietly, "and destroyed many within it." The Palazzo Medici was vast, cool, and intimidating in its elegance. Guards watched Elias from beneath heavy brows as he passed through courtyards, filled with statues meant to imply eternity. Lorenzo received him in a room lined with tapestries depicting battles long past. "You are difficult to classify," Lorenzo said after a long pause. Elias bowed slightly. "I consider that a survival skill," Lorenzo smiled thinly. "You spend time with artists, engineers, scholars, and yet you sell nothing. I trade in conversation." The Palazzo Medici was vast, cool, and intimidating in its elegance. Guards watched Elias from beneath heavy brows as he passed through courtyards, filled with statues meant to imply eternity. Lorenzo received him in a room lined with tapestries depicting battles long past. "You are difficult to classify," Lorenzo said after a long pause. Elias bowed slightly. "I consider that a survival skill." Lorenzo smiled thinly. "You spend time with artists, engineers, scholars, and yet you sell nothing. I trade in conversation. Conversation shapes opinion." Lorenzo leaned forward. "Opinion shapes power." Elias met his gaze. "Then Florence is the richest city on earth." The Medici lord laughed once. "Careful. Wit is useful until it is not." As Elias left the palazzo, he felt eyes following him. He had been noticed that night. Elias checked his beacon, still stable, but something felt wrong. He dreamed of Florence burning not with fire, but with light. Machines rose from cathedrals. Wings beat above the Duomo. Gears replaced bells. He woke, drenched in sweat. Leonardo noticed immediately. "You dream like a man chased," he said. "I am," Elias replied honestly. Leonardo studied him. "The future weighs on you." Elias hesitated. "What if I told you that some of the greatest suffering in history comes not from ignorance, but from knowledge arriving too early?" Leonardo's eyes sharpened. "Then I would tell you that ignorance kills slowly, but certainty kills faster." They stood among sketches of flying machines. Leonardo ran his fingers along a drawing of wings. "Tell me," he said, "do men ever fly?" Elias closed his eyes. "Yes." Leonardo exhaled, smiling like a child. "Then I am not mad." "No," Elias said softly. "You are just early." Her name was Isabella Conti. Elias met her in a print shop near Santa Croce, where pamphlets criticizing church corruption were quietly circulated beneath stacks of prayer books. She was sharp-eyed, dark-haired, her fingers permanently stained with ink. She looked at Elias the way scholars looked at forbidden texts, with interest and caution. "You ask questions like a man who already knows the answers," she said, "and you print." Words like a woman who knows their cost. Elias replied. She smiled. Dangerous men say that to flatter me. Dangerous women print truths that earned a laugh. Isabella believed ideas should be free. That knowledge belonged to everyone, not just princes and priests. She spoke of a future shaped by reason, not bloodlines. Elias listened. Heart-heavy, she was right. She was also standing on the edge of disaster. Some ideas, Elias warned gently, ignite faster than their authors expect. Some must, Isabella said, or the world never changes. Their conversation stretched late into the night. Elias found himself drawn to her fire, her certainty. For the first time since his arrival, felt something dangerously human. Attachment, the proof came on a rainy afternoon. Elias followed whispers to an abandoned warehouse near the river. Inside, he found diagrams chalked onto stone, mathematics to advance. Angles too precise. And then he heard a voice. You're early. The man stepped from the shadows. Modern boots. Synthetic fabric poorly disguised. A scar along his jaw, a relic of future wars. You shouldn't be here, Elias said. The man smiled. History disagrees. He introduced himself as Marcus Hale, an independent traveler, a renegade. The Renaissance is a launchpad, Marcus said. Imagine what we could build centuries ahead of schedule. You destroy everything. No, Marcus replied. I'd improve. Elias's blood ran cold. Marcus was recruiting artists, engineers, printing, forbidden texts infused with future science. The fracture was spreading. Florence trembled. Rumors of heresy spread. The church tightened its grip. The Medici watched everyone. Leonardo grew restless, sketching feverishly, eyes haunted. Isabella's shop was raided. Pamphlets burned in the street. Elias stood at the crossroads of time. Stop. Marcus and erase progress, or let the future bleed into the past and watch history collapse as bells rang across Florence. Elias realized the truth. The Renaissance was not just a rebirth. It was a tinderbox, and someone had struck a spark. Florence had always lived on the edge of danger, but now the edge was beginning to glow. Elias felt it everywhere in the hurried glances exchanged between scholars, in the way guards lingered longer near workshops, in the sudden disappearances of printers and thinkers whose words had once flowed freely through the streets. The city was tightening like a fist preparing to strike, and beneath it all, something else stirred the future. Marcus Hale moved like a ghost through Florence. Elias learned this the hard way. One night, Isabella did not show up at the print shop. Her shutters remained closed, the door sealed. When Elias asked nearby merchants, they avoided his eyes. Fear had a smell here, sharp and sour. He found her 2 days later in a cellar beneath an abandoned apothecary. Candles lined the walls, illuminating stacks of parchment covered in diagrams, lever systems, pressure valves, mechanical calculations that should not exist for another 3 centuries. And there was Marcus. You're late, Marcus said. Calm as ever, Isabella stood beside him, arms crossed. Defiant but tense. You didn't tell me he was real, she said to Elias. The future. The machines. All of it. Elias felt betrayal twist in his chest. I was trying to protect you. From what? She snapped. Truth. Marcus smiled. That's the difference between us, Elias. You hoard history. I share it. Elias stepped closer, eyes scanning the designs. These ideas will get people killed. People always die during change, Marcus replied. The Renaissance itself is proof of that. Leonardo's wings appeared on one page, refined, corrected. Dangerously close to functional flight. Ilias's voice dropped. You've been feeding them answers. Tools, Marcus corrected. They do the thinking. Isabella hesitated. If knowledge can free us, it can enslave you faster, Elias said. Princes will weaponize it. The church will burn cities to control it. Marcus leaned in. And yet you came back. Why? Elias had no answer. Leonardo felt the change before he understood it. His sketches were sharper now, more precise. His thoughts moved faster than his hands. Ideas arrived fully formed, as if whispered by something just out of sight. "You are not the only traveler," Leonardo said one night, staring into a half-finished design Elias had never seen before. Elias stiffened. "What makes you say that?" Leonardo tapped the page. "This equation. I did not invent it. I recognized it." Ilias's silence confirmed everything. "They are teaching," Leonardo continued softly, "and learning too quickly." "Yes," Elias admitted, "and it will end badly." Leonardo looked at him, truly looked at him. "Then why do you hesitate?" "Because stopping it means destroying potential." Leonardo closed the notebook. "Potential without restraint is chaos." For the first time, Leonardo sounded afraid. The sermons changed. Priests spoke less of salvation and more of obedience, of heresy disguised as innovation, of knowledge that tempted men away from God's order. Public burnings returned. Books out. Then people. Elias watched from the crowd as pamphlets Isabella herself had printed were thrown into flames. He saw fear twist her face, anger battling despair. "This is why we must continue," she whispered. "They fear ideas. They fear losing control," Elias replied. "And Marcus is giving them a reason." The Inquisition knocked on doors across Florence. Leonardo went into hiding. So did Elias. Hiding makes intimacy dangerous. Elias and Isabella shared stolen hours in darkness. Whispering plans, arguments, fears. "You never tell me what happens next," she said once, tracing the scar on his hand, an injury from a future that no longer existed. "Because if I do," Elias replied, "you might choose it." No. She met his gaze. "Or I might change it." That was what terrified him. He had seen timelines fracture before cities erased, cultures collapsing under knowledge they could not contain. But Isabella was not reckless. She was principled, and principles were harder to fight than greed. The first machine was small. Her printing press, modification metal reinforcements, pressure calibration, efficiency, multiplied tenfold. Pamphlets flooded Florence faster than authorities could burn them. Then came the clock dot, not a time machine, nothing so crude, eh? Precision device capable of measuring seconds. Accurately, time itself was being redefined. "Do you understand what this means?" Elias demanded when he confronted Marcus again. Marcus's eyes gleamed. "Navigation? Science? Synchronization? Empires depend on accurate time. Empires kill for it." Marcus shrugged. History always belonged to the bold. Elias saw the truth then. Marcus wasn't trying to improve the past. He was trying to own it. The night Florence burned was not recorded in history, because officially, it never happened. A workshop exploded near the river, experimental materials igniting in a chain reaction. Fires spread. Panic followed. Guards clashed with citizens. Someone rang the bell's knot for prayer. But warning, Elias ran through smoke and chaos toward the cellar. He arrived too late. The devices were gone. Marcus had fled. Isabella stared at the empty space, tears streaking her soot-covered face. "You promised," she said softly. "I failed." Elias replied. She turned away. "That hurt more than the fire," Leonardo emerged from hiding at dawn. The city smoldered behind him as he spoke with Elias in the shadow of the Duomo. "I will help you stop him," Leonardo said. "You risk everything," Leonardo smiled faintly. "I always have." Together, they studied the remaining fragments of future knowledge. Leonardo's brilliance made him dangerous and essential. Elias activated his beacon, direct interference protocol, forbidden.